it up. First of all, thank you to Renee and his staff and his committee for this honor. Congrats to the other, it's interesting to listen to all hockey people talk, right? They talk about passion, they talk about commitment, talk about humor, humility, all those good things that make the game that it is, right? So unfortunately, most of you stole my speech, so I'm gonna have to improvise. But I do want to recognize, despite being, I don't think you told me I didn't recognize anybody, but I'd like to recognize my wife, Alex, game changer. I'd like to recognize my family. They're all here. They blessed us with 4 grandchildren, soon to be 5 in December. So thank you for the effort to be here today. Another guy I'd like to recognize is Mike Smith. Mike and I crossed paths with the Rangers in the mid-'70s when Mike showed up as an assistant coach, which was a bit of an oddity in those days, because evidently in those days us Canadians thought that Americans didn't know anything about the game. So Mike was an American, so we didn't take him. But anyway, long story short, Mike, you set me straight then, and it's been great to reconnect. So as we move along here, I'm going to just remind my children that a lot of us get better players in memory, right? We get to be better players too when we get further away from the ice, because the game looks easier up there. And no better evidence of the fact that in memory and recollections we're great players are better expressed than my son Dan at 12 years of age, after watching a video of dear old Dad. He said, "Dad, why are you so slow? Why the hell didn't you hit anybody?" So that's Dan in the meantime. And I know we all reference, because I think it is a theme, right? It starts with parents. And there's no question that my parents gave me the fundamentals to have a chance at success. Have a chance, hockey, as mentioned before, sometimes it takes this stage of your life to recognize how important the values are of your parents and of the game. And when I'm looking at Billy Smith, I was reminded also, Billy, I would come physically closer to you, but I tried that during the times we played those Ranger Islander games. I'm not going to get hit anymore. I don't heal the same way. And the other guy too, I would wish he hadn't showed up in the spring of 1984, was Ken Morrow. Because Ken Morrow scored the great overtime goal and knocked us Rangers out of the playoffs. So Kenny, you picked back-to-back years not to show up, and you showed up in 1984. So I've marginally gotten over that loss. I just want you to know. So my parents, my dad, Steve, instilled in me the importance of accountability, honesty, and an unwavering work ethic. And above all, character. From an early age, he made it clear that effort and integrity mattered more than talent alone. My mother, Regina, on the other hand, brought a fierce competitive spirit. She hated to lose, absolutely hated to lose, and I thank her for passing that along to me. So together, those values allowed me a chance to succeed. I was born in Kitchener, Ontario, and I moved to Lindsay before I was 1. We eventually moved to the farm. That farm started with 1 cow. My dad said to me, the great Gordie Howe milked the cow twice a day, and that's why he is a good wrist shot. So every time I come around the cow, she's like this. He's coming again to milk me. Well, mission accomplished. The cow got milked. I think I had a pretty good wrist shot. So, Dad. And again, working on the farm, I know it was hard work, and I was soon able to conclude that hockey was a hell of a lot easier than working on the farm. And again, like most Canadians, most New Yorkers, we grew up playing hockey to fill in the long day hours of the cold winters, right? We played on frozen lakes, ponds, rivers, played street hockey. We played all 4 seasons we played, and it was a valuable time spent as a youth. My organized hockey days started as a 6-year-old, right? Playing half-ice hockey on Saturday mornings in Lindsay, Ontario. CKLY, right? And I started as a forward, and the name we've heard tonight multiple times, the great Bobby Orr came along. and changed the game of hockey. He had the puck. When he had the puck, he would go end to end to score. I loved playing as a 6-year-old, but I loved it even better when I saw him play, and boy, wouldn't it be fun to play like him. So, just to fast forward a little bit, my second game of pro was in Boston, the Boston Garden. So I'm on the ice, Bobby picks up the puck behind the net. He comes wheeling up ice, right? Now it comes down, as he comes to the neutral zone, I go, uh-oh. I'm one-on-one with Bobby Orr. He puts a move on me, I basically fall over, which was the bad news. The good news was he put 2 of his mates offside. So on the way back, he taps me in the ass and goes, "Welcome to the NHL, kid." So I had my summers, I ended up working at Bobby's camp, to backtrack a little bit, so I had a history with him. I went to his hockey camp as a 12-year-old, and went back and got a junior counselor job the following summer, worked 11 weeks for $50. But we skated every single night. I think it was Kathleen that talked about youth and different things about our youth and how we were able to live. We weren't managed, but I skated every night. We scrimmaged every night. And I think it's that summer that put me on the path that brought me here, right? Because hockey would become a very important part of my life. I would go on and play 2 years of junior for the Kitchener Rangers. My coach was Eddie Bush. Eddie Bush was one of the more colorful characters in the history of junior hockey, and he had really unique communicative skills. A set of piercing blue eyes, an ear-splitting whistle, and the F-bomb. It would be like, like 16 years old, we learned a lot differently then than they do now, and it's probably a good thing, right? Again, I would go on. In the spring of 1979, the pinnacle of our career for me was the Cup Finals. And we ended up losing to Montreal in 5 games, but we had beaten the Islanders in the semifinals. And the Islanders were good. They were allowed to develop. They took their lumps. They lost, I believe, 3 seasons before when they were good, but they were able to stick together and eventually won that 4-cup run. For us in '79, the headlines in the New York Post after we beat the Islanders was, "Rangers whoop it up at Studio 54. And whoop it up we did, because unfortunately, I guess we thought that was our cup. And I often think, we were led by Phil Esposito, Walter Kachuk, Carol Vadney, as core veterans. We had Anders Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen, who were European skilled, but NHL tough. And then the young guys, Gresh, Ron Duguay, Don Murdoch, Pat Hickey, and of course my younger brother Don, which Sam referenced. And from that standpoint, that was the highlight of my career, was playing with Don. We were a couple of years apart, hockey-wise, as youth. And of course, Don would go on and run in that Cup series, establish the points for rookies. 2-time All-Star, 1-time All-Star MVP. And he did that. I don't think he ever had a pair of skates that fit him until he got to the NHL or junior hockey, because he was 3rd in line in the hand-me-down equipment line. So I always got the first pair of skates, and God knows what Don, how he ever fit into his skates, he probably didn't. So, but that being said, he was way ahead of his time, way ahead of his time when it came to conditioning and off-season skill development. And so was myself, my brother Bob, my brother Don. We were Irish triplets, and my brother Bob, by the way, went on to be a doctor. So a lot of really good things happened in life. And to talk, in the spring of 1983, I was a healthy scratch. And that was the first time in my life I was ever told I wasn't good enough. Talk about before, like I was either fortunate or fate or how things work. I made every team. So for the first time, in many years, I was told, I'll never forget, my name was on board the healthy scratch. That was tough. That was tough. And again, you talk about the turns and twists and turns. And I often imagine like I was whatever type of player I was, but when you see premier athletes when they get to the end of their career, or any athlete that gets to the end of their career, that. So I grinned and buried it long enough, stayed tight-lipped until I was eventually traded. And I was traded by Herb Brooks and Craig Patrick, but I was fortunate along the way to play for 4 different Hall of Fame coaches, right? I played for Emile Francis, played for Fred Shiro, played for Herb Brooks, and I played for Scotty Maloney. And by a long shot, Herb was the best coach I had. I know Joel will likely reference Herb. And by the way, I do want to thank Sam and Joel for 19, 20 years of great memories at MSG Network. Sam and Joel are consummate pros, and I just wish you the best in the next stage of life. So anyway, Herb expected you to be the best you could be. He demanded conditioning. His practices were hard, precise, run. A lot of times the games were easier than Herb's practices. So the point is, a lot of times along the way, what I felt, the guys that you kind of thought were too hard on you, in hindsight, were probably the best thing for you. Because you don't realize then, we're not equipped to know then what I know now, right? But when I do look back on Eddie Bush, who had that three-way thing, but he demanded that I be, in his skills, demanded that I be the best I could be, and that was the same with her. So, I sit here and I go, I can't believe I'm here. I know I had a dream of playing in the NHL, and I just am thankful for the opportunities that we earned along the way. I listened to Joe speak last week at one of our MSG outings, talking about earning the right to play to the next level. It's not deserved. It's not deserved. We aren't owed anything, right? But what you are owed is an effort to give an effort and be determined to do and to get to the next level. So that being said, I still am very proud of my family. I'm proud of the fact that 51 years ago I showed up in New York as an 18-year-old. Didn't know where the hell we were going, and I'm still here. So it's an honor, and I still think when Renee and Mike reached out to me that they thought they were getting my brother Don. So thank you very much.